Hello, 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 and welcome to Small Scale Chatter with me, Anjuli, the fabulous host, and James, my fabulous guest.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome everyone to Small Scale Chatter. It is a videocast, live web show and podcast about the miniatures community, which is a wonderful community full of lovely, lovely people, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. If you enjoy this videocast and this podcast and want to help us out, you can go to patreon.com/geekgirlbookworm and join up from £2 a month and help us get to our first goal, which is to get to 50 people helping me out. And then we can get a super mega subscription for Podbean and I can do all sorts of crazy cool stuff with it, which will be awesome and amazing. The link is in the chat. I'll put it on the screen there as well. But yes, James, who are you and why did I invite you onto my show?
Well, what an excellent question to start with. I am shocked and appalled. My name is James, otherwise known as MJG Paints online, and I'm also the community manager for Redgrass Games. And I assume I'm here today partly because of my addiction to plastic and partly because we have a big Kickstarter launching tomorrow.
Ooh, we do. That's very exciting. Very, very exciting stuff. I'm just putting some links in the chat. So if you want to go and find out more about the Kickstarter as we start talking about it, there's a link in the chat for you. Also, here's Instagram. _paints. I'll put some more links in later. But yes, I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for saying that you would come along and for it being quite a tight sort of schedule. Like, quick, I have 8 dates. Literally just one. Do you want it? Yes.
You just got to seize these opportunities wherever you can get them. So
I think it was before you announced the Kickstarter date as well, but only like an hour or so before it. It's like the 19th, and it's like, okay, it's the day before the Kickstarter. Okay.
I choose to see that as serendipity.
Yes. Right. Okay. So tomorrow is the big day. Yay. So tell us, what is this Kickstarter about?
Okay, so tomorrow's Kickstarter at 5 p.m. GMT, for most of your British listeners, is all about the second generation of wet palette. So about 4 years ago now, Redgrass kind of changed the scene a little bit with the first everlasting wet palette, because prior to that, there weren't really many of those kinds of options available for miniature painters. And yet it makes so much sense when you're dealing with things like acrylic paints and often complex techniques like glazing to have one. So the brothers Grimm, Fabrice and Vivian, said, well, why don't we just do a wet palette for miniature painters? And 4 years ago, almost to the day, actually, it's where it launched. And so for the last 4 years, they've basically been working on the ideas they couldn't implement in the first generation into this new and improved version. So it's very exciting that we're going to be able to launch it tomorrow. Obviously I've seen prototypes. I've seen what testers like yourself have been able to do with just parts of the pack. Yeah. So the fact that we're going to be able to put it all together and that basically thousands of people around the world are going to be able to take part is really, really incredible to me. And I just can't wait to see what people do, basically.
And the community is so excited by it. Like, I love like watching everyone's like reviews of that when they be talking about the membrane, or people just being like, I can't keep looking to see when it's on. I think it's there and it's not live yet.
To be honest, I'm right there with them. I wish it was all ready to go now. Fabrice and I been looking at the Kickstarter page this afternoon, before I came on here. And it's like, it's so nearly ready. We just need to do a little bit more, just a little bit more. I was like, but we could just press it now, early bird, right? You can do early bird on Kickstarter. And people as you've seen on Twitter or Instagram, they're like, is it time yet? I keep looking at my clock. I can feel the tangible excitement. And if you're not a miniature painter, you do not get it at all.
Yeah.
So I volunteer at a local charity, and they were saying, can we meet up at this time this week? And I was like, I'm afraid I can't, guys, because we've got a Kickstarter. I'm really busy for that. And they were like, what are you doing for Kickstarter? I was like, it's a miniature wet palette paint for miniature painters. And they were like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I assume it's good. And I was like, trust me, it's really good.
Yeah.
So that's how you know you've joined an exclusive club, is when people get genuinely very excited about a second generation of wet palette for miniature painting.
Yes, and it's one of the things with my job, because I work with board games and things, like I forget that everyone that I work with is a nerd like me. And I'm like, oh man, and I just start explaining that everyone's like, yeah, we already know. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot you're all nerds too.
Yeah.
So excited for all of us.
Yeah. Well, and then of course we have, in our own happy little niche on the internet, we have our kind of celebrity nerds. And so when they nerd out about the products that we do at Redgrass, it's like, oh,
yeah,
Angel said what so cool.
Yes. Damn, that talented person. Angel stuff is very good. Very lovely.
Oh, he's all right. Yeah,
he's all right. Does okay for himself, I suppose. So we were talking about the last generation wet palette, and for anyone who's watching who's like, I don't even know what you're talking about, this is what we're talking about. Oh, let me get rid of those comments first. I'll get rid of them. So this is the first generation of wet palette. So you can see it's got a lovely sort of plastic base to it. And the first generation one has like it has a foam, and then it has like it's a paper, throwaway paper, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you put on top. Use it till it's full up, scrunch it up, throw it in the bin.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to revamp that throwaway paper in the bin, one and done thing? Tell me.
How do you up the ante from baking parchment? I mean, really?
That's what I used to use.
We all did. It's a rite of passage.
Takeaway pot and a baking paper.
Oh, you see, I used a sandwich Tupperware that I'd stopped using for work. Yeah. And a dish sponge that I cut in half so that it fit, because it was a very shallow Tupperware. And then, wrapped it in a cake baking parchment that was already pre-cut into a circle for cakes. So then I had to cut it myself into a square so it fit in the Tupperware. So less than ideal, but better than nothing. So how do you up the ante from that? Is good question. Well, basically the reusability aspect, which people have really latched onto, which I think is fantastic, is actually it's a sort of happy side product of what the initial aim was. As you've been able to see for yourself when you've been trying the new membrane, it's got a very kind of satiny, almost plasticky finish. Although I hasten to add, there is no plastic in it whatsoever. It's all natural materials. So it's a lot, actually, production of the new membrane is actually a lot more green than the production of the baking parchments, ironically. But anyway, the kind of shiny, satiny surface is just wonderful for blending on. Even the choice of color of the membrane is better for rendering with your eye when you look at it compared to the parchment, which was kind of translucent. So you kind of saw the gray foam underneath, which isn't the end of the world, but it's better this way.
The colors,
and also the surface itself is really great for reviving older paints. So you may find, obviously, with acrylics, they do dry out over time, even on a wet palette. Just a touch of water will bring them back from the dead with this new membrane, which is fantastic. If you look at Electric Eve on Twitter, she posted a video last week, I think, where she revived in real time these really old paints, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I've had 3 washes on mine so far, and you can see
how's it going?
It's still very clean. Like, you can just see I've got a little tiny bit of paint there where I started. But it's really easy to just like. Yeah, there's no like actual like force needed really at all. Just like the little scrubber, dub, and it's done.
So I think the short-term benefits are, whilst you're actually painting, things like blending is even easier to do. And then the long-term benefits, of course, are the fact that you can reuse it more than once. So, for instance, if you sell a pack of 20 membranes, that's actually, in real terms, it's more like 100 sheets of baking parchment.
Yeah.
So, in terms of production and in terms of customer use, it's a lot more cost effective and better for the environment, probably. We'd have to do some proper studies in that, so we're not kind of like bigging that up officially in case somebody
But
finds
it makes
something.
sense if you're not having to make so many of it. Then there's that part of it that's greener, and then if people are just throwing away a non-recyclable paper like every single day, or more so if you're a professional painter, I imagine you go through more than one piece of paper a day. I mean, I go through like one a month at the moment,
depending on how busy you are, of course.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that you would you get more use out of it. And I think obviously there have to be studies, but I think it definitely sounds more green.
And there's no plastic in it, so it kind of feels a bit plasticky. It's tough. It's kind of tough like a plastic, so it's very durable. I mean, we've seen testers beating the hell out of it to get rid of some of the old dry paint, and it's kind of withheld really, really well.
It doesn't feel like it's gonna, because sometimes if you get your baking baking paper too wet, you sort of put your brush through to like mix a color.
Very easy.
Smushed it through, and you're like, dang.
Yeah,
I just poked this with my nail and it didn't do anything. So that's
so long as that kind of so long as that surface kind of retains that sheen, the performance should be the same the 5th time as it was the first time. So I think it's great for longevity.
And I like the fact that the lid closes really nicely on it. So if I was going to be taking, I used to do in the before times, you see each other.
Do you remember the before times?
Before times, I used to go to so Warhammer World is very close by. So on a Thursday they do paint sessions. So I used to go to those. It'd be really cool if I could just take this with me, and then I could, if I don't finish something, I can just I've got the paints there ready. I could just come home and be like, okay, quick, finish that bit up. And it's nice that it stays nice.
Absolutely. And I think a wet palette really lends itself to people that paint Warhammer or that use Citadel paints, because there's a lot of techniques that are recommended on the TV channel, for instance, that you might not be able to do as quickly as the professionals. And so if you're using the paper palettes, it might just dry out too quickly for you. Whereas if you do it on a wet palette, you've got that time to really be brave and experiment with new ideas and new techniques that you might not have done before. So it's great for things like glazing, or if you've got really thin paints for edge highlighting. It's great for that.
I've used it with some Instar paints, which are which are really thin paints. Normally I don't need to add anything to them, but it's been quite warm in my front room where I do my painting. And I find that it's drying out really quickly. So, but using them on this, it's been fine. When I used it on my homemade one, it was just filled with water, and it was just the worst.
So the foam is, it's kind of hard to describe and probably a bit boring, but the foam is basically better than a sponge. So they look the same, but they're not the same. And it's also mold resistant, unlike a sponge. So that should help in the long term as well. But the foam is really good at retaining moisture compared to a sponge. And the new membrane is one way. So that should help with moisture retention as well. And then the triple whammy is that the new case that we haven't sent out to anyone yet, but will be part of the Kickstarter tomorrow. The new case.
It's hooked on that membrane, and then you're like, oh, you guys, you want this new one? You're going to back it. I see.
First hit is free, darling, but the rest's going to cost you. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Come on. If it makes you feel any better, I haven't even got one of the new cases yet either.
Okay, that does make me feel better.
But the new case sealing system is one of a kind. Does not exist anywhere else in the world. And so it should form an even tighter seal than the one you're getting now. So on the existing Redgrass, we recommend with the little bento box strap, just to try and keep it sealed. But this new one doesn't need it. And you can open it with one hand. So the fact that it's tighter and somehow more easy. Ugh, sorry.
Somehow, I know good words.
Me no speak English good. The fact that it's tighter and yet somehow easier to operate is a marvel.
I'm even more excited. I was going to go on and back things anyway, because it's awesome, and I've backed other stuff from Redgrass, including this, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Everybody loves the handle, right?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so I got to ask, what's this?
That's an inkwell.
I was like, I don't know, what is this wavy?
So that
doesn't tell me anywhere what it is.
I'm so sorry. That is the OG wavy.
Whoa.
The original gangster wavy. So you'll see it's got magnets on the side, so you can just slot it to the side of your palette. Basically, if you're dealing with things like inks or washes, and you don't want to put those on your wet palette because they spread and they'll soak into the foam or whatever, just use your wells. They're little wells, little ink wells.
Okay, so that's what I thought it was. But I was like,
it also has a secondary use that not a lot of people know about.
Ooh.
So what you can also do is the way the wells are designed with that little kind of U shape, you can use it as a brush rest whilst you're painting. And it was designed with that in mind, but a lot of people don't realize. So sometimes we get messages with very helpful people who are like, I've got a great design idea for you guys. Why don't you do a brush rest? And it's like, we already do. You've got one right there in the picture.
Like, oh, dang.
Plus, it's really awkward because it's like, we can't take ideas from you because then we'll have to owe you money. So
please don't send them in.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't send us your ideas. Vivian's a very proud creative sort. You know, he's got the designs covered for years in advance. He's got it covered.
So let's talk a little bit about this handle as well, because so this was your last. Was this the last Kickstarter that was Redgrass Games one? Or was it the one before? I can't remember.
No, this was this. So literally this time last year is when it launched.
Because I remember, as I said, I did back it, and I gotta say it's really super comfy. Like, I like the fact that I can just like use my thumb to turn it around. I don't have to be all like like super lazy. The lazier I can be when I paint, the better.
Yeah, and also it's a lot kinder on your wrists. Like, you know. There is definitely a lot of miniature painters I know with, you know, things like RSI and carpal tunnel, and the ability to do that means that they can actually do something that they enjoy, like painting, for much longer than they would have been able to do with a traditional holder. And Vivian's always been kind of very fond of coming up with designs that change the way people paint, but for the better. It's not nefarious, like I will transform these people. It's just, you know, there is an easier way to do it. And it's like, why move your hand like this when you can just flick your thumb and get to the bit of the model that you need to get to? So he's always looking for those kind of ingenious little ideas. I
like the sticky top as well, because when I do like a lot of commission stuff, it's all off base. And I like to paint the miniature first before I put it on a base. So then I'm going to work the base around it. So it's nice that I can just like plonk them in without having to like drill holes in it. I hate pinning so much.
Yeah, pinning is a chore. But I mean, beside the fact it looks a little bit like a Jaffa cake wrapper with the blue and the orange together. The putty is fantastic, because when I first got some, Vivian was like, it's like I was like, is it like blue tack? And he's like, no, not really. I think blue tack could learn a lot from this orange putty. I have no idea how they make it, but it is strong.
Yes it is. I painted like huge trees, like dwarven forged trees, and I've literally just put it onto that and held it on, and I've been like tipping upside down, streaming for like 3 hours, and it's not like fallen off once. It's like good glue.
Ingenious.
Yes, it's made with magic. Right. Okay, so what are the long-term goals for Redgrass Games? Like, what are your plans coming up in the future?
Well, it's sort of much of a muchness, really. I think we're on the right track, and so the ambition is to keep growing meaningfully, keep with that kind of community-centric goal in mind, open and honest, trying to support community artists as we've always tried to before, and just start introducing more tools to our inventory as and when it makes sense. So not just rushing things out because they could exist, but rather putting them out because they need to exist, or because we've added something meaningful to the miniature painter's repertoire. So obviously when Redgrass introduced the first wet palette, there were lots of wet palettes that suddenly appeared from other companies.
Yeah.
But it's not like we looked at what they did and said, well, okay, they're doing this, so we're going to do that as well.
Yeah.
We just, it was a case of, well, we can see a way to improve miniature holders, so we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And, it took a couple of years to get to the right design. And then when it was ready, it was released. And so I think that's very much the intention to keep going, is to grow meaningfully and to develop things meaningfully as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no point just like following the crowd. Like, if something's not broken, you don't need to go and try and fix it. But if you can see that there is a definite fix that is needed, then yes, that's very exciting for the community.
Absolutely, yeah. And we want, we love to see how excited the community is, as we mentioned earlier, about things like our wet palette, because they're not excited about wet palettes so much as they're excited about our wet palette.
Yes.
Because they know what it means when they go to us, and what it can do for their painting. So, to quote philosopher and sage Eminem, it doesn't matter how many fish in the sea, it'd be so empty without me. So, there could be lots of wet palettes on the market and paint handles and whatnot, but really it means a lot to us that people really rep ours.
Yeah. I'm very excited. I first noticed Redgrass with this, and it's only because my younger brother, he also paints.
Yeah.
I was like, I've seen this handle on Kickstarter. It looks really cool. And then I was like, yeah, pledge. There we go.
And actually, the handle's a perfect example of our kind of business ethos in mind, because it is so community centric, because it's the version 2 and it's based heavily on feedback, not just from testers like yourself, but also just from consumers of version 1 who were like, okay, I really like this, but is there any way that you could tweak it so that it does this as well? And Vivian sits down and he goes, okay, how can we work this out? And then when it's ready, he's like, okay, let's do a version 2. This is what the people want. So I think it's it's a really good example.
So, not trying to skip ahead or anything, but the next Kickstarter that you're looking at doing is for something that I think is like essential. It is a hobby lamp, a task lamp for when you're painting, and it's so essential to have like good light when you're painting, because otherwise you take it into natural sunlight and you're like, what have I done?
Yeah.
This is what it looked like upstairs.
It's awful.
Yeah, and it's good for your eyes, and it's good for taking photos. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what you come up with this the reinvention of the hobby lamp, which is another exciting thing.
Well, again, it's very much in that vein of, let's release something when we know we can make it better and meaningful for our community of miniature painters. And if you think about how we revolutionized the wet palette, imagine what we can do with a task lamp. And so the fervor for the task lamp already, just based on the kind of prototype preview pictures that we've posted on social media, is phenomenal. Yeah. First of all, it looks like it could be from Mass Effect, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Commander Shepard says, "This is my favorite lamp on the set."
Yes, I was hoping you'd make that reference. Thank you so much. I'll set them up. You knock them out of the park.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite sexy looking. Like it's looks very thin, very light. And I was doing this earlier when I was saying the word lamp.
This is, of course, the universal symbol for a lamp or giraffe.
Yeah, it swivels. It looks.
So if you go back to the picture, is actually 2 lights.
It's like 2 prongs.
Yes, and they're both on basically rotary cuffs, so you can angle them different ways to better focus or cover an area. So again, that's something. It's a little ingenious tweak that we haven't seen in any kind of other hobby task lamps on the market.
That's very cool. So when I do like OSL and stuff, I try and move my lamp to where like the light would be coming from, and take a black and white picture. Really cool to be able to like twist it just a little bit more and get the right angle, so I can, when I'm looking at where I'm painting, I'm like, okay, yeah, they're the bits that have got to have the OSL on them, because they're the bits that have been lit up by my terrible holding a lamp. But yeah, if it's got
well, I mean, also think as well, you could do multiple direction OSL.
Yes,
because you've got two.
I haven't nailed one direction OSL yet.
Oh, well, we can have a session if you like. I love OSL, and I try to do it as often as possible.
Yeah, I love the idea of it, and I love the effect when it's like pulled off, and I'm like, oh, I'm rubbish. Sometimes I get it very, very right, and then other times, it's like, oh, now I've just ruined that whole paint job. Cool.
I'm sure that's not true. You're putting yourself down. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm actually going to be, when we move on to questions about you, I'm going to be talking about some of the pictures I've seen on your Instagram of like your OSL and things. It's like, oh, it's tasty.
It is a penchant of mine, it must be said. I do like it a lot.
So one last thing I want to talk about with Redgrass Games before we move on to questions about you. I just want to let everyone know that so this book I got as a physical copy in the last Kickstarter.
Yes.
And I saw that it's also going to be available in the next Kickstarter as well.
Yeah.
But you just to let people know, you can get a free PDF copy on the website, which I thought was awesome. So I thought just wanted to share it with people. So go to Redgrass Games, and there's a free painting book on there. And that is a really lovely book and really easy to follow, which I really liked. When I got it, I got it because it like was free with my pledge. But I'm really glad that I got it. I love the fire and it's really lovely. So I highly recommend people go and get that free painting book and then get the physical copy with the Kickstarter tomorrow.
I mean, sometimes you just can't beat a physical copy, which is basically why we decided to include it again. It'd be really nice for people to just have a physical book. We don't hide that we make a free version available. We want people to have it rather than not have it. And to be able to learn from someone like Angel Geraldez is awesome. So we're not hiding it behind a paywall or anything. It's just as an added treat. It's like nice to have a physical copy of the book. So if you pledge tomorrow, you can have a free copy of the book as well. And there's just lots of little really useful tips in it. Yeah,
it's a nice little book to have handy. And I have it on like my desk. So when I'm painting, if I think, okay, let me have a look through this, if there's any like tips for the thing that I envision in my head, is it a real thing that can be done? If so, Angel probably knows how to do it.
There's a fine line between madness and genius. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm not on the right side of the line. Or am I?
Who can say?
Okay, so tell us a little bit how you got into this wonderful, wonderful hobby we call miniatures.
Well, I was way back when, turn of the millennium, already into models, as many sort of young teenage boys were at the time. I was already into things like airfix tanks and plane kits, massively into World War II because, boring and predictable like that. And my sister started dating someone who's now her husband, at the time was her boyfriend. And he came round and he saw all my sort of airfix kits hung from the ceiling to make them look like they were flying. He was like, oh, yeah, man, these are really cool. Have you done any Warhammer? And I was like, what's Warhammer? And oh no, that was when the cymbal crash and there was a lightning strike outside. And I think it was like a couple of days later, he came round and he was clearly trying to worm his way into our family and ingratiate himself with me, get the little brother on side. And he brought round this treasure trove of late 80s, early 90s Warhammer that he'd collected when he was my age then. Yeah. And oh my God, I just poured over it. It was phenomenal. And so I think the first thing I ever painted was a plastic Space Hulk Terminator librarian. Yeah, I got one of this. Oh yeah, like it'd be so valuable now if it wasn't like caked in the thickest amount of I can't even think about it now without cringing, but I loved it. And for 3 or 4 years I just did everything. 40k fantasy, Necromunda I really liked. When Middle Earth Battle No, I can't say it.
Strategy.
That's the one. That's the word. When that one came out, I was obviously massive because I was already a big Tolkien nerd anyway. So it was like 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
So I did it all. And then I kind of fell out of love with it. I'd had some pretty negative experiences. And I was like, oh. And then I got to sixth form anyway, and I was too cool, going clubbing and drinking and whatever. Both are very expensive hobbies, and you kind of have to choose.
Yeah, you can't have both.
No. So I had a long hiatus, and then I think it was around 2017. I was looking for something creative and stress relieving to do after work. I was a head of history in a high school in Norfolk, and I wanted to do something after work to blow off steam, but was also exercising my creative side rather than just sort of mindlessly sitting in front of the TV. So I was like, well, I used to really like Warhammer, and I'm just really curious to see what's happened.
Does it still exist?
And again, another lightning strike. I think it might have even hit the same tree, poor tree.
Your bank screamed.
As if a million voices all cried out in terror at once. So I walked into the Norwich store and I started talking to the manager, who was Jason. And I walked out of the store with about £200 of kit. Well, because you're going to need this paint and then this paint. Maybe you need this Horus Heresy book just to understand things, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I kind of dabbled a little bit. And I didn't really hit my stride until I think 2018. Then I was just doing it a lot, almost every day, I think. Yeah. And I did basically I joined Instagram almost like a way to schedule myself. And I was like, well, first of all, I'm not talking to anybody out in the real world because I don't know anybody in the real world who likes this. Yeah. And the internet is a fantastic place to meet like-minded individuals. And second of all, it will help me kind of keep to a regimen because otherwise I'll just stop and start. Yeah. And so, 2018 is really the rebirth as far as I'm concerned. And I haven't looked back. It's very slowly subsumed my entire life, but in the most fantastic, phenomenal way. Because now it's basically my job.
Yeah, I think I started painting in 2018 for the first time. I did not do any Warhammer stuff because that was for boys. And really scary for a girl to walk into a Warhammer store in like the late 90s, early 2000s. It's like I drop my brother off there and be like, okay, I'm gonna go shopping, I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think it was about 2003. I walked into the shop and I'd heard a rumor on an online forum about 4th edition assault rules, I think it was. And I walked in and everybody stopped and looked because it felt like I was interrupting a boys' club because I wasn't one of the regulars. And I was like, oh, sorry. And so, kind of skulked to the back to buy the thing I wanted to buy. And then when I went to the checkout to make small talk, I was like, oh, I've heard there might be some new rules coming soon. And they basically all laughed at me. And I just felt so terrible and so small. And I was like, oh, okay. And thankfully, since I got back into it, my experiences have not been like that at all. Obviously, I've expanded a lot beyond just Warhammer. I do a lot of, D&D and large-scale resin miniatures and all sorts. But, even on the internet, most of my experiences are generally very happy and positive. And even if you have a nasty one, it's relatively easy to just block. And you don't have to see horrible trolls anymore.
No, it's very nice. Yeah. My block list is in the thousands.
Well, just let me know if I ever upset you before you block me.
I know I very rarely block someone who I'm friends with, so it's fine.
Oh, that's fine. I'm on the safe list.
Yes. Unless you say something horribly anti-feminist and offensive, and then you're going down.
I think that would be fair. I think that would be fair. I think miniature painting doesn't have to be exclusive at all. It's a creative expression, and everybody's entitled to that. And if you don't like it, the best thing you can do is just not say anything. Just go away and go and like something else somewhere else. Yeah.
Children are taught that if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's just do that.
It's not rocket science. And you were a chemistry teacher, so it's
true. Definitely, I do know rocket science. Yes.
You need to get that on a t-shirt.
Yes, I do know rocket science.
I know rocket science and board games.
And also board games and miniatures. Ask me about these two, please. Not
Just
science.
just a long list. Cross out the rocket science one.
Yeah.
No more.
Don't ask me about the periodic table. I'm sick of talking about the periodic table. Do you play any miniature games now, or is it solely just painting, or is it?
No, well, I mean, I do.
I mean, in the before times.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't played many miniature games since God knows when. And then cue the gif of Saving Private Ryan where his face ages. But I do. I have not played, although I do have the rules for 9th edition 40k, because I haven't had anyone to play with. Sometimes I can cajole my partner Alice into playing things like Kill Team and Warcry. She likes those because they're very pacey and small, skirmishy. We've just started playing Zombicide, which is really cool. We love D&D. We're actually in 2 separate D&D campaigns right now because lockdown's actually really good for D&D.
Yeah.
Because everybody's at home. Oh, really?
Yeah, I've not played any. It's just no one's invited me to their groups. And I've just been too stressed to run my own game.
Do you want to be in a D&D group?
Maybe.
You could be in one of my D&D groups if you like.
Oh, that would be nice.
Oh, DM me, hun. DM me, hun.
Yay.
So we do a lot of D&D, and I like it most when you can get a miniature to represent either the character that you're playing or the NPCs that you're interacting with. I love grounding it in that kind of immersive realism. So, for instance, I've just got a big set of Tiny. Do you know Tiny Furniture, the Russian resin company? Oh my God, you'll love it. They do D&D scenery, and it's phenomenally detailed. And I've just basically bought a ton of bar stuff from Tiny Furniture.
Nice.
Because in both campaigns, a tavern is kind of, well, like in any D&D campaign, a tavern is kind of a central hub. So it's basically going to be the backdrop to any miniatures of our groups that we obtain. It's just finding the good ones, you know, because sometimes you can find really ropey D&D miniatures. You know, say what you like about Games Workshop. When it comes to quality and sculpt detail, they are light years ahead of so many other companies.
Yes. I'm gonna Atlantis miniatures are still some of my favorites for like goblins.
Atlantis, you say?
Atlantis miniatures, yes.
Okay. I love
Dan
discovering.
It's going to be on my. It's going to be on my show. Dan is wonderful. He is a 3D sculptor, and he makes really really cool, wonderful, like characterful stuff. And he now has his own like 3D printing website as well, so we can get STLs and everything too, which is very cool. We'll talk about those in that episode with Dan. And yeah, I do a lot of Bad Squiddo games as well.
I've heard so much good stuff about them.
Annie is amazing. Her office is down the end of my road, so so we see each other. She's like the only person I've seen during lockdown. Saying, "Do you want to go to the park to see the ducks?" We paddle off to the park together to go see the ducks from a distance. 2 meters
Obviously, responsible.
Yeah, but it's nice. Yeah, her stuff is very good for like if you want. She does like an Amazons and things. So if you're looking for like a warrior female. She's got you covered with those, but she also does lots of historical. So. Yeah,
I've seen the historical stuff, which I was really impressed with. I think it was some Russian soldiers, right?
Soviets,
in one campaign, I'm a very boring moon elf fighter, and I'm just trying to find ways to make it more interesting. But in the other campaign, I'm in love with my player character, who is called Mihole of 5 Trees, and she is a hexblade warlock. But that's only just happened. So she was a swashbuckler, and then she's discovered this sword that's talking to her. And then obviously gave her Eldritch Blast. So you can kind of get addicted to that power, both as in universe and out of character.
So, just Eldritch Blast it all.
So I kind of wish Miho was real so I could hang out with her because she's my life now.
Oh, amazing! I haven't had a character like that in ages. I had a tabaxi who looked like a snow leopard. Her name was Misty. She was a ranger. Well, her name was Golden Miss at Sunset or something like that, but Misty. And she was a ranger who had a gorilla called Kerchak.
Oh,
and
cool.
yeah, she made some very terrible errors in insight rolls and became a vampire thrall.
Oh no.
But it was fine. Like she just was a vampire. But I had all these rules where I couldn't go out in the daylight anymore. So we had to start adventuring at night only.
Guys, I'll see you at 7. Yeah.
So if we had to go somewhere, we had a bag of holding, and I had to get in the bag of holding because it was like, well, you're already sort of dead. You don't breathe, so you could probably survive in a bag of holding.
Yeah, and you're a tabaxi anyway. You know, if I fit, I sit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I want to do a one-shot with Alice, my partner, but I want to railroad her into being a tabaxi warlock, but her patron is Garfield. Because she was basically like, I never want to be a tabaxi. We were listening to, you know, those horrible DM stories that you can listen to on YouTube.
Yes.
And there was this awful one about this DM having a run-in with a tabaxi who did all the ooh-woo stuff, but like meant it real life. And Alice was like, I'm never ever going to play a tabaxi. And then in my head, all I could think about was, how can I make her play a tabaxi? So, you know, she can have an enchanted lasagna. Yes. Garfield can be a patron. You know,
she could hate nemesis. Mondays.
Exactly. Yeah. You get it. You get it. Yeah.
Sounds good. I mean, this would be a good game. A good one shot. I enjoy this.
Yeah,
video it so we can watch and be like, yeah.
Oh, gladly. I'm in a one shot in July. I think it is I think it's called The Art of D&D by Dollar Store DM on Instagram. Ooh. And I'm erring towards being a bard, but it's a bard that shares like memes. Like all the spells are based around memes. So it's a very irreverent take on the bardic colleges. So it's going to be the College of Memes.
I love it. That's really good.
Yeah. So that's, yeah. I think Americans and Brits have very different interpretations of D&D. I think we're very Monty Python with it. Oh, Monty Python. So I hope she enjoys it because that's how I'm playing it.
Sounds awesome. I'm living for it. That's amazing. Oh, okay. So let's go back to talking about painting, I suppose. See it
if we must.
Yeah. So we're talking about OSL. I was going to say, what's your favorite painting technique? But you've already told me it's OSL. You love it. It's great.
I do. I do. Yeah. OSL and possibly texturing. I do really like small attention to details. So, you know, I'm never going to get excited by batch painting armies. I just find it interminably dull. I hate base coating. If I can find any way to do it quicker and easier, I will. But, you know, if you want me to write a script on a book, I'll do it. Or a tiny a tiny purity seal, I'll do it. You know, painting faces, I love doing. I love attention to detail, which is perverse, I know. Yeah. But it also does lend itself to OSL very nicely, because if you can get the OSL on a face just right, chef's kiss.
Yes.
So one I'm really proud of is the Loot Studios Furbolg Druid I did in a Fimbly a couple of months ago, I think. And I basically did multiple direction OSL.
Nice. Just going into your Instagram.
Yeah, probably easier to see it than to just describe it. But Loot Studios do awesome sculpts anyway. And she was holding a lantern in one hand and a bird in the other. And it was just a perfect character study.
Let's see if I can.
I don't know if you can see it.
A bird in one hand. Was that?
Yeah, it's a 75mm 3D print. It's kind of yellow on one side where the lantern hits her face and blue on the other.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's pretty. Everyone should go see it. You can't see it. I'm going to put the link
podcast.
This is the link for it in the chat now. So pop it up here.
Oh,
that's
nice.
The one you want to go to find that one. She's oh yeah, that's nice. It's really subtle. Like on the blue, like blends really nicely. I'm very jealous. I'm not going to show you any examples of my own. You could do a training session. You can teach me OSL.
I'll try.
I sort of get it, but I haven't got the blending part just right, and sometimes it just looks a little bit heavy in places.
It is just kind of glaze slog a lot of the time, and often it is quite scary because when you're first doing it, it looks awful, and then you just keep glazing, and about 20 layers later, it suddenly just goes pop, and it looks awesome, and you go, "Oh, I'm so glad I held on."
Yeah, I maybe have not got to the patience, but
and also a spray can is your friend. So as much of the OSL you can get down with like Wraithbone spray, that's your friend. Okay. Do that almost like a very directional Zenithal Prime.
Okay.
And basically paint around it. So all the stuff that's not hit by the light, just paint normally, and then the things that the Wraithbone has hit, which is going to be where the light's playing, then you start glazing the light source, whether it's an orange lantern or a purple warp glow or whatever, and that might save you some time. And also it's a bit of a morale boost because you can see all the way through the process where the light's supposed to be. I think sometimes people do Zenithal priming and then they just apply all their base coats and then you can't see the Zenithal prime anymore, and it's like, well, what was the point of
why you do that?
You just
took a good photo at the beginning. But...
Exactly. Don't make things harder for yourself. Work smarter, not harder.
Yes. So what's your favorite models to paint? Like if you're given the choice of anything, what would you pick?
Good question. I really like sort of large scale character studies. So, busts, 75 mil and above. You can't do them too often because they are exhausting and they're real labors of love. And some of them may take months. So, I did one called Sienna Starkiller from Black Sun Miniatures, and that took me 3 or 4 months just doing a bit, getting tired, leaving it, coming back to it. But it was a real passion project. And you get so many new challenges at that scale. So when I post like whips or finished pictures of, a 90 mil bust, people go, wow, that face is amazing. What's the scale? And you go, it's not 28 mil scale. And they go, oh, well, it must be easier then. I was like, if you've tried to paint smooth skin at that scale, it's not easier. It's just a very different challenge. Yes, eyes are easier to do for sure.
Yes, because you can see them.
You can see them. But making face look interesting is a lot harder, because actually that's when you start to appreciate that skin color isn't just one color. And you end up putting in glazes of things that you just would not consider skin colors, like green.
Yeah, bit of green
and blue.
Bit of blue
yeah, they are your friends when you're painting lots of skin, but people just don't think to use them on 28 mil. Because on 28 mil, you can do Cadian flesh tone, Reichland flesh shade, and the heavy lifting's been done. So,
you don't need to put a green wash over that. It's like, and now they're a zombie. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love those. And in recent times, maybe even the last couple of years, that kind of market has exploded. Like people are getting really inventive with large scale resins, and they're often a lot more diverse than 28 mil scale. I mean, besides your good friend from Bad Squiddo, there aren't a lot of female miniatures, and of the ones that are available, some of them are a little bit kind of, well, you can't use them as gaming pieces.
No.
You can justify them and defend them all you want, but and they have their valid creative expression purposes, but you can't use, whatever as a gaming piece. But large scale resins, you get really interesting characterful female studies. And often I think they're far more interesting than the male ones at the same scale, because the male ones all kind of look like Conan. The orcs look like Conan, the dwarves look like Conan. And it's kind of a bit repetitive as far as, it just doesn't do it for me creatively. But a lot of the large scale female models are amazing, and they're so creative, and people are coming out with amazing ones all the time.
There's some really nice ones that I can't remember the name of, but they're on my my mini factory wish list of these three three female busts,
Yeah.
and like one is an elf. One has got like a beer can, and she just looks like the nicest, like friendliest person.
Yes.
It's like, and she's got like the beer is overflowing. Another one is like an elf with like a dragon or like a pseudo dragon type thing. And I was like, oh,
I know who you're talking about.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
Bold Miniatures.
yes, that is yes.
Because
Yeah,
I'm painting one of theirs right now, a different one. So it's called Boa, and it's a very scary lady with a samurai sword and a big boa constrictor.
Oh, yes, that is on there. They have like a bundle on there, and it's like $60 or something for like all of the ones that they have on there for STL for 3D printing. And I was like,
maybe
payday. Gotta wait till payday.
They just had a Kickstarter as well, and the models they released they're quite cartoony, but in a very fun way. It's actually a Spanish guy who lives in Sweden, I think, or Norway. Very interesting. Yeah, but very interesting company.
I really like those. They're on my list of my next things to
And White Werewolf Tavern do fantastic busts and character studies as well. If you
don't
know them,
I do know them. Yes,
yeah,
yes, I've seen them around. They had like a painting. They have like a monthly, every other month, like painting competition, don't they? Where you 3D print their thing and paint it up, and they do competitions, which is awesome. It's a really nice way to also to interact with the community. To say, hey, buy our STL, print it, paint it, show it off. Some smart marketing there as well.
Hey, it works.
Yeah, it does. Okay, what technique would you most like to learn or are working on at the moment on improving?
That's a good question. I mean, things like non-metallic metal, I find very interesting from a technical standpoint, and I would always like to try and get better at those. Not necessarily silver, which I think I'm kind of coming to grips with, but like a really nice gold or copper, bronze, non-metallic metal. When I see them, they really make my jaw drop far more than the kind of standard NNM you see. So I'd love to be able to do something like that.
Lovely coloured ones. I just love. She does like the purple armor and it looks metallic. I'm like, how you do that? This is witchcraft.
Yeah. So I did a chromatic, like a dark chrome Jane Czar, which I was really proud of, and I'm currently working on a model called Erica by Geek Gazpacho, and she's leaning on a huge sword, which in itself is a fun pose. Yeah. It's kind of pin-uppy, I guess, but I got it because of the sword, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity to practice some really reflective MMM. So I'm working on her at the moment. Easy for you to say, yeah. So, but they're not techniques that are easy to learn, and they are techniques that you can forget to do properly. Like they do require kind of constant attention. So yeah, I'm in awe of people that do it all the time and seemingly effortlessly.
Yeah, non-metallic metals are my thing to learn properly. I sometimes do it and I'm like, damn it, I nailed it. That was awesome. And the next time I do it, I go, damn it, I've forgotten how to do it. It's rubbish. Start again.
Or when I hate it, I just go, well, it's stupid anyway, because it only works from one direction and you couldn't paint it over an army anyway. So I didn't want to do it anyway. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, I love you. Why can't I learn you?
It's so beautiful. It's so out of my reach. Yeah, that's my thing. I've been working on it for years, but not very often. This is my other issue, is I don't sit down and go, I'm going to paint loads of this today. It's like I'll paint it when it comes up.
You see, whilst you're busy having a rich and interesting life, I'm there studying the brush, you know? That's the difference, you know? When people say, oh, how do you get so good at painting? It's like, I don't have a life. It's easy. You know?
You say that, but I just, if I'm not painting, I'm just playing video games. I play Mass
like a certain Mass Effect, is it?
Yeah. Just finished Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and just the day before Mass Effect came out. Perfect.
That's good timing. That is good timing.
There I am. Boom. Yeah. God, I love Mass Effect.
I know that feel.
Fem Shep, she's the best.
I never ever play Male Shep.
Male Shep's rubbish. I mean, I've never played it. I always play. If there's a female character option, I always play the female character option because it doesn't happen as often as you want.
I imagine games are a lot like the miniature world.
Yeah, they're getting better.
Yeah,
as miniatures are as well.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, what mini are you most proud of that you've painted?
Ooh, wow, that is a tough
Yeah, I
one.
should have sent these to you maybe beforehand.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's like asking me to pick which of my children do I love the most in front of the children. Pick one now. Fortunately, I don't have any children. Which miniature am I most proud of? Ooh, I don't know. That is tough. I really like Sienna Starkiller. Not necessarily because she's the most technically well painted. I mean, she's all right. Like but yeah, as I say, it was a real labor of love, and she is in a display cloche downstairs where I can see her all the time.
Oh, I've just found her.
Yeah, that is a very Mass Effect FemShep model. To be fair,
yeah, that's a cool
if FemShep had a sword,
yeah.
I just remember my partner's dad came in and he saw it and he's like, that looks good. The sword's a bit exaggerated though, isn't it? It's like, yes, that's why it's amazing. Women with big swords is amazing. I will paint all the women with big swords. So yeah, maybe that one. And I did Shizang from Nico Galaxy, another large scale, based on the artwork of Deathburger. So just an incredible mashup. Those kind of two, the Nico Galaxy company with Deathburger together. What a phenomenal mix. And the model was an absolute joy to paint as well. She's sitting on a kind of like cityscape eating noodles, and it's just like, wow, what an amazing kind of snapshot. But maybe most recently, a model I'm most proud of is the Blacksmith that I painted on Friday. So right, super recent, just the OSL. Yes. As you're saying, it just popped. It just...
Yeah, that's nice. That's real good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put this one in chat as well. Chat. Go and feast your eyes on that. Because that's tasty.
It's just a wonderfully atmospheric scene.
I like that. Always my favorite minis are the ones that are like sort of telling a story.
Yes.
Rather than just like, hello, I'm in a pose.
Yeah.
It's like this is telling a story. It's giving us like a little snapshot of this character's life.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, Shizang is just, she's sitting having a dinner. Like, wonderful. Yeah. The Blacksmith is at work. And I just imagine him, he's on his own in the foundry, just hammering away at the metal. Like, it's just him and the light. And it's just very evocative, and I really like it.
I'm staring at it like, oh, that is good. That's very good. Damn you. You're not coming on here anymore. I don't want you on here anymore. You're no longer invited.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know, harsh. But fair.
But that's actually, he's an example of the spray thing I told you about.
Yeah.
So just black prime, then the One Direction Wraithbone, paint around it, and then glaze over the Wraithbone with the light source you want. Okay. Saves time.
I'm gonna try that. Yeah.
Yeah, do.
I've got lots of stuff that came in the post yesterday from Atlantis Miniatures. So you play with some of that stuff. That'd be good fun.
Well, if Atlantis Miniatures ever needs anyone, oh wow! If you need a hand painting it, let me know. I'll do it. I got this very cool guy from Dragon Trappers Lodge. Do you know those guys?
No.
I've got this very cool looking fish guy.
Oh, that's
cool. I can't wait to paint him because I'm thinking gonna go crazy with the skin, maybe orange and blue.
Nice.
And this turtle.
These gotta have two. From Fighting Fantasy game books in Livingston. Yeah. So Atlantis Minis did like the miniatures for all of the bad people, all of the main characters in the books. And I helped out down at Fighting Fantasy Fest in the before times. And instead of payment, I was like, how about you give me the all-in pledge of that thing, because it's going to be really expensive.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll do that.
Well, when I get approached by companies, because I mean, I do commission painting, and unfortunately, when I joined Redgrass, Vivian said, well, you can keep MJG paints, like it's your brand, you do what you want, so long as it's not in company time. I was like, that's fair. And sometimes companies do approach me and they say, will you paint for us? And I always say yes, because it's just variety, isn't it? It's interesting. But often if it's a small startup or if they're doing a Kickstarter, I'll say, to be honest, just don't worry about money. Just give me the minis. Like, that's what I'd be spending the money on anyway. So
it's like, if you give me this money, I'm just going to give it back to you in the Kickstarter. So
just send me the minis, and I get the kick out of painting them and getting to play with them before everyone else. So I love that, and it feels like it's helping them, which I like doing as well. Yeah, because they've got to spend their money on other things in a Kickstarter.
Yes, exactly.
As now I know. Yeah.
Oh, fees! Yay!
Yay! Yeah, it's when you have a really successful Kickstarter, and then Kickstarter are like, "Well done, guys."
Give me the monies. So I have a question from social media.
Okay.
And so it's asked, if you were given unlimited funds and unlimited times,
oh God,
you could choose any painting accessory to revamp, what would it be and how would you change it?
Any painting accessory?
Yeah.
To be honest, I have an airbrush, but I'm very happy with it. So I don't think that needs tweaking, really. Airbrushes is something Redgrass looked at, and they were like, to be honest, we're not entirely sure what we could do to improve them. So
yeah, unless you could make it so it never, ever, ever clogs, ever, 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 and you never have to clean it. That
would be wonderful.
Yeah, if you could work that one out for me, that'd be great. Because I haven't used it in about 8 months because it's clogged and I don't know how to clean it.
Yeah. They are fickle mistresses, airbrushes. Yeah. So again, that's another one when people say, "Oh, it must be easier when you use an airbrush." It's like, "Oh, my sweet summer child." If you've never used an airbrush, that's why you think it's easier. It is not easier.
It's a whole different experience. I can't control mine. So
pray and spray. Pray and spray. So I don't think it would be an airbrush. And I think the clogging thing would have to be an additive that we add to the paint rather than the airbrush. And it still wouldn't work. I don't know. I think desk spaces need to be smarter, because I think cluttered desk spaces, at least from my own personal experience, very demoralizing. They kind of ruin your flow. They make you less efficient. I think we need clever desk tidying solutions. I've got the kind of MDF put together paint shelf things, and they do okay. But they have their limits and they smell funny. And they're very fragile. I think unlimited funds and maybe some of that Redgrass ingenuity, thinking about clever things. I think
things that swivel around and there, but it's like a revolving door of paint, so that they're all there, but you don't have to see them all at the same time. Color code them then. It's all my purple colors, whoosh. My green colors, whoosh. My blues, whoosh. You owe me money if you do that.
Well, you're not fair. It was my idea first. Maybe that. I mean, a lot of things that hobbyists already need are already there. They might not realize they're there. I
only just discovered magnets and magnetic sheets.
As
a thing for storing my spoopy boys that I'm doing. It's this is genius. Why didn't someone tell me about this earlier?
Well, that's why we put a magnetic disc with the holder, so that it's easier to store. And also it stops it from toppling over if you've got a top heavy model. You do have to take the sticker off the bottom.
I haven't got around to that, but
you have to commit.
I can't. That's the commitment. I can't commit to where I want it to be.
So I sent one to Frankie, Princess. I don't know if you know her, the cosplayer and painter. I sent her one of the handles, and she took the magnet because she lives in a camper van, because she tours around the country, which is really cool, but obviously very short on space. So she put the magnet underneath the cupboard, I think the kitchen cupboard, and so when she's not using the handle, she can just stuck it up there and it's out of the way. And it's that's amazing. That's a really clever way of using it.
That's a really great way.
But it's they exist. It's just perhaps they're not well known. I mean, not many people know about our nippers, the Redgrass nippers, but they're phenomenal. They're the best nippers on the market. And if you've used the kind of old school Airfixy ones, or maybe even the Citadel ones, they kind of crush rather than cut. And so when you're trying to cut things off a sprue and you're left with loads of flush behind. It's like so irritating.
Yes.
Whereas with the precision nippers, really small and sharp, you can get so close, and you basically clean away the mold line as you cut. It's like,
nice.
why would you go anyway? Yeah, why would you use anything else?
Sold. Well done. Well done. I shall get those.
If only there were add-ons tomorrow.
Yeah, that's. I mean, if there are, then I'll be adding them on. Because, yeah.
Maybe if there were pledges with packs of different tools available.
Tasty.
Maybe with a discount. I don't know.
That would be super. That would be pretty good. I mean, it's not.
This
too
is
late.
all off the record,
You haven't
right?
put it on. Just you've got till 5 o'clock tomorrow to hit that send button. So like.
Well, obviously with Vivian off sick, we it's just been me and Fabrice. So we've been kind of working overtime to get it all ready for the big off.
Yay! Are you doing like a live press the button party?
I mean, we hadn't thought about it, but maybe we should.
You should, yeah. Just do like a live YouTube type thing or a Facebook Live or something. Like it's always really good fun. Like Annie does one on all of her Kickstarters. So you just turn up for 5 minutes beforehand. She chats and then she hits the button, and then everyone just watches for the first 5 minutes. The money coming in. It's very exciting.
I need to talk to this Annie because it sounds like she's got really good ideas.
Annie is she is really really good at the I mean her Kickstarters are awesome. She does she's a one person business and
wow.
25,000 for her minis for a series. So
that's nice.
Yeah, she's awesome, and she's a really great part of the community. I had her on my first episode but she's awesome. Everyone should go listen to episode 1. If you haven't listened to episode 1, go listen to episode 1 where we talk to Annie of Bad Squiddo Games, and we don't talk about our origin story because everyone asked her about our origin story and I already knew it, so I didn't want to hear it again.
Wow, I mean that's basically every superhero movie critique right now.
Yeah,
we don't need the origin story. We've heard it before a million times.
Yeah, don't need it. Whatever.
Yeah, just cut to the chase.
Yeah. So tomorrow, 5 p.m. Get your butts to Kickstarter. Follow the link that I've put up and get yourself the Redgrass Wet Palette version 2. It's the best tool for miniatures. And yeah, I do have to say, I've been using the membrane for a few weeks now. I've had 3 washes with it. Still looks awesome. And I'm going to continue to use it. I'm going to get some more. And I'm going to be back in the Kickstarter because it's, I'm in love with that. I'm sold. I've turned over to the wet palette. That's not my Chinese takeaway.
Say goodbye, Tupperware boxes.
Yeah.
Say goodbye, dish sponges. Your reign of tyranny is over. Redgrass is here.
Yes. Right. Well, I think that sort of roughly nicely rounds up the show. Thank you so much for coming along.
My pleasure.
As I do every time, I'd just like to thank my patrons very, very quickly. Let me take that off. So thank you very much to Timo, Tim, Brandon, Charlotte, Chris, Fenris Games, Cerberus Studios, Ben, David, Frankie, Gav, Hanno, Louis, Dreaming in Red, Bob, Paul, Richard, Silverglass, One Sick Bunny, Anton, and Liam Hall for all of your love and support. As I always say every fortnight when I do this, you guys are awesome, and I love you very much, everyone. Thanks. And if you want to join the party and get your name read out and have me tell you that I love you as well, then head over to patreon.com/geekgalbookworm. And yeah, go join from £2 a month. Really, 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 really cheap. It's really awesome. And I do make sure that I do updates on there, though I did forget this week. I will go and do some updates on there. But I'd also like to say that this episode is the last in our spring season. And so from the next episode, we're moving into summer. And on June 2nd, we'll be talking to Fenris Games. And we've got some really cool people booked in for the summer series. I'm very excited. And I have booked in now up till the end of October as well. So I have a couple of times in November free. I'm probably going to take December off as a break, series break, and start again in January the next year.
Unreasonable.
No, but yeah, I've got some really cool people I'm going to be talking to in the coming months as well. So yes, everyone stay tuned. James, thank you very, very much for coming along and talking to me. I saw that Vivian is sick and couldn't be here as well to chat with us, but we will get him on the next one.
He'll be happy to talk at length about the lamp.
Yes. I love lamp.
Brick. Come on.
I'm going to get a t-shirt that says that for it. Just sit there the whole time.
Do it. Do it.
I shall. Thank you so much for coming along. It's been really nice to talk to you.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Yay. Right, everyone. Well, it's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you for hanging out with us. And we shall see you again in 2 weeks. Goodbye.